All right, let's talk about China. Yes, China. The one with the pandas, the Great Wall, and a giant invisible hand on the world's technological throat. Now you might think global power is all about who has the biggest rockets or the loudest politicians. But there's something else, something quieter, that's become crucial. We're talking about a new kind of power, one that underpins almost everything that whirs, beeps, or connects you to cat videos on the internet. It's a story about rocks, but not just any rocks. For centuries, empires were built on gold, spices, or control of strategic waterways. Today, the battleground looks a little different. It's less about conquering distant lands and more about controlling the very ingredients that make our modern world tick. China has been playing a very long, very clever game. While everyone else was arguing about, well, everything, they were quietly becoming the world's indispensable supplier of some rather special materials. This affects you. It affects the phone in your pocket, the computer you're probably procrastinating on, and the electric car you might be dreaming of buying. The global economy relies on these materials. And right now, one country has a very firm grip on a whole lot of the most important Jenga blocks. It's a situation that's making a lot of very important people in very important capitals very, very nervous. So buckle up, because we're diving into how a bunch of unassuming elements became China's not-so-secret weapon in the ongoing global economic tug-of-war. So, what are these magical critical minerals we keep talking about? Well, first off, they're not the kind of rocks you skip across a pond. The term critical minerals refers to elements and mineral commodities essential for the functioning of a modern economy and whose supply chains are vulnerable to disruption. Think of them as the vitamins of the industrial world. You might not need tons of them, but without them, things start to go very, very wrong. Generally, we're talking about things like rare earth elements, a group of 17 metallic elements with names like neodymium, dysprosium, and yttrium. Then there's lithium and cobalt, the darlings of the battery world, powering everything from your laptop to electric vehicles. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they are absolutely must-haves. This concentration of supply is what makes them vulnerable to disruption. Whether that disruption comes from natural disasters, political instability, or deliberate strategic maneuvering by a global superpower. You might be thinking, okay, John, I get it. Fancy rocks, important for stuff. But important? Without critical minerals, our modern technological society would look less like the Jetsons and more like the Flintstones. These elements are the unsung heroes, the invisible backbone of almost every piece of advanced technology you can think of. Consider your smartphone. That sleek little rectangle of glass and metal is a treasure trove of critical minerals. The vibrant colors on your screen, rare earth elements. The powerful little magnets in the speakers and vibration motor, more rare earths like neodymium and praseodymium. The battery that hopefully lasts you through the day, lithium and cobalt. Multiply that by the billions of smartphones, tablets, and computers in use around the world, and you start to appreciate the sheer scale of demand. But it's not just about consumer electronics. Critical minerals are at the heart of the green energy revolution. Those giant wind turbines capturing renewable energy, they rely on powerful permanent magnets made with rare earths to generate electricity efficiently. Solar panels? They need elements like tellurium and indium. And electric vehicles are essentially giant batteries on wheels demanding vast quantities of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and graphite. Beyond gadgets and green tech, these minerals are indispensable for national security and defense. So how did China, a country that wasn't always the dominant force in this arena, manage to get such a stranglehold on these vital resources? Was it luck? Not entirely. While China does have significant domestic reserves of some critical minerals, particularly rare earths, their dominance is less about what's in their ground and more about a decades-long, incredibly shrewd strategy. This wasn't an accident, it was a plan. It all started back in the 1980s and 90s. While Western countries were distracted by the end of the Cold War and the dot-com bubble, China was looking ahead. Leaders like Deng Xiaoping famously recognized the strategic importance of rare earths, reportedly stating, "The Middle East has oil, China has rare earths." China began to systematically invest in the mining and, crucially, the processing of these materials. They understood that controlling the raw ore was only half the battle. True power lay in controlling the entire supply chain. This strategic foresight is the bedrock of their current dominance. Now let's dig a little deeper into that processing aspect because it's absolutely key to understanding China's leverage. It's one thing to have a big pile of rocks in your backyard. It's another thing entirely to have the sophisticated and often environmentally challenging industrial capacity to transform those rocks into the ultra-pure materials that high-tech industries demand. China didn't just aim to be a big mine, it aimed to be the world's indispensable chemical processor for these critical elements, and by golly, they largely succeeded. Think of it like coffee. You can grow coffee beans in many parts of the world, but if only one country has all the best roasting machines, grinders, and baristas who know how to make a decent espresso, then everyone else is just stuck with a bag of green beans. China effectively built the world's premier critical mineral coffee roasting and espresso making facilities. This dominance in processing gives China incredible power. Alright, so China has this massive control over minerals that everyone needs. How does this play out in the lovely, not at all stressful world of international trade disputes? Well, it turns out that when you're the main supplier of the secret sauce for everyone else's technological Big Macs, you get a pretty hefty say in how the global fast food kitchen is run. Critical minerals have become less of a commodity and more of a geopolitical chess piece, a silent but incredibly potent weapon in the ongoing trade spats, particularly between China and the United States. Remember 2010? Japan and China had a bit of a tiff over some disputed islands. Suddenly, Japan, a major importer of Chinese rare earths for its electronics and automotive industries, found its supplies mysteriously drying up. It was a wake-up call, or at least it should have been, for the rest of the world about the potential for weaponization. The implications of China's mineral dominance ripple far beyond just trade figures and corporate bottom lines. This isn't merely about whether your next iPhone costs a few bucks more. We're talking about fundamental impacts on national security, the green energy transition, and the very direction of technological innovation worldwide. When one nation holds the keys to the essential ingredients, it can influence a whole lot more than just the price of those ingredients. Let's start with national security because that's where the alarm bells are ringing loudest. Modern defense systems are utterly dependent on critical minerals. Fighter jets, guided missiles, drones, communication systems, night vision, you name it, it probably needs a dash of rare earths, a sprinkle of tantalum, or a dollop of tungsten. If a country's access to these materials can be threatened or cut off by a geopolitical rival, its ability to produce and maintain its defense capabilities is severely compromised. Then there's the much-hyped green transition. Everyone wants cleaner energy, electric cars, and a sustainable future, right? Well, that future is quite literally built with critical minerals. For a long time, it seems many countries were content to hit the snooze button on the critical minerals alarm. China was providing them cheaply, and hey, out of sight, out of mind, right? Especially when those out-of-sight processing plants were also out of my environmentally regulated backyard. But the repeated wake-up calls from the 2010 Japan incident to the more recent trade war jitters have finally started to sink in. The world is slowly, perhaps a bit too slowly, waking up to the precariousness of its mineral dependence and the urgent need for a plan B. Governments in North America, Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia are now scrambling to assess their vulnerabilities and formulate strategies to diversify their supply chains. This involves a flurry of activity identifying domestic mineral reserves that were previously deemed uneconomical, investing in new exploration projects, and trying to revive dormant mining industries. A major focus is on rebuilding domestic or friendly shore processing capabilities. As we've established, digging the ore out of the ground is only part of the puzzle. You need the facilities to refine it. This means significant investment in new refineries and metallurgical plants, which are expensive, can take years to build, and often face local opposition due to environmental concerns. So what does the future hold in this high-stakes game of mineral monopoly? Is the world doomed to be forever beholden to China's strategic grip, or can a more balanced and secure global supply chain emerge? Well, the optimistic view is that the current crisis is a catalyst for much-needed change. The panic, while uncomfortable, is prompting action. The key now is to move from frantic scrambling to sustained, strategic planning and international cooperation. Because going it alone is unlikely to be enough for any single nation apart from China itself. International collaboration is going to be absolutely vital. Countries with mineral resources like Australia and Canada need to work with nations that have advanced manufacturing bases and significant capital, like the US, Japan, South Korea, and European Union members. This means forming new alliances, sharing technology, co-investing in mining and processing projects, and establishing common standards for responsible sourcing. Think of it as creating a critical minerals buyers club to counterbalance the existing sellers' monopoly. It's about creating a more resilient and diversified global marketplace. Innovation will also play a massive role.